Back at it again. All right, seeing a place to be. Rick Saratella here for another edition of the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show here on this November 1st, 2025. Happy November, everybody. We're getting started on the right side of things after we played the wrong intro for you. I saw New and Blue intro played for you, courtesy of Dan Orlando, who does the New and Blue show. But this is the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. I can promise you that. My favorite day of the week because we get you primed for all the college football action. We got a big docket for the NCAA Week 10 affairs. And we're going to break down all the marquee matchups with a keen focus on the 2026 NFL Draft, talking about draft-eligible prospects, key players, insider intel for each of those matchups. Of course, you can follow along over on the website over at allaccessfootball.com. I posted the Draft Insider yesterday on the website, and it profiles a lot of the teams that we're going to talk about. We've got scouting reports, background information, intel from campus visits. We've got projections. I mean, everything you want, because the NFL Draft is heating up. We're 173 days away till destination Pittsburgh, and we've got a lot of content for you to digest over on the website. We got our mid-major and FCS small school prospect tracker. Of course, the FCS Combine was announced yesterday. Maybe we'll get into some of that at the end of the show. We'll see. Of course, the Scout Notebook will be out on Monday over on the website. All of our scouts from the weekend will be compiling their notes, and we'll put it in the notebook on Monday. But today, Rick Saratella here with you for about the next hour of power, like we do each and every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. If you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, X, please smash that like button, share it, subscribe it. And my co-host each and every Saturday is former scout for the Cleveland Browns and St. Louis Rams. Of course, he began back in the college ranks with UCLA Bruins. Also a member of the Canadian Football League, one of the few people who have scouted in the National Football League, Canadian Football League, the original XFL. Of course, a member of the CBS Today program show, GM Junior, Draft Guide, a professor, and also a mentor at the Sports Management Worldwide Football GM and Scouting course, which is starting up soon. Make sure you check out smww.com for that. We've also got a Senior Bowl film session breakdown that we're doing with Brian Baldinger. You can sign up for that as well. But he is Russell Landy joining me in from Chicago. We got you covered from Jersey to Chicago. We're going to make our way out west if we can a little bit as well. Buckle up. What's happening, Russ?
Not a whole lot, man. I'm excited to be here. Always love talking ball with the big Rick. So
yeah, man,
we're on it. We're rolling.
Yeah, we got some big matchups, ranked on ranked opponents in the SEC. We'll take a look at Oklahoma and Tennessee. That one's 7:30 tonight. We got Vanderbilt at Texas kicking us off at noon, and we'll even squeeze in a Big Ten affair with USC at Nebraska, highlighting some of the top prospects in those games. We'll start off with the Friday Night Lights because Billy Belichick, it should be noted, got his first W over a Power 4 program last night, defeating Syracuse. And we know Syracuse starting quarterback is out for the season. They've been a little bit banged up, but you still got to put a feather in the cap for Bill Belichick. He said it felt good getting his first W against a major program.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, yeah, losing the quarterback for Syracuse, obviously their offense came in as a hurting unit. But hey, it is the game. You got to go out and play the game. Doesn't matter. And Belichick's, for the first time, at least to me, you saw some of the signs of Belichick's defense being what he wants. Do your job, be in your spot, carry out your assignment. Don't try to do too much. They did that. They really held Syracuse in check the whole game. I'm sure some of that was due to the lack of having the starting quarterback. But I think a lot of that is the players are starting to sort of get a feel for what is a complex defensive scheme. So it's a good first step. Hopefully they can keep it going. I think it's going to be a hard thing for the long term there for Belichick at North Carolina, but I think at least they got the first win. Hopefully it works out. You always like to see a coach who's been so successful continue to win. Not sure it's going to happen, but it was a good first win.
Well, they're trending in the right direction because they were knocking on the doorstep. They had a couple of close games. They got stuffed on the goal line last week.
Yeah.
Had a lot of opportunities to win some ball games. So we'll see. I mean, even if they do pull it around, like to your point, it's hard to be optimistic about the future after they whiffed so heavily on the transfer portal. We'll see what the future holds in Chapel Hill. One other news and note that we got to get to before we get into the game previews It was announced yesterday, Russ, Arizona State quarterback Sam Levitt will be shutting it down for the season due to a foot injury. And, he was one of the, I don't want to say top signal calls, maybe in that tier 2 range, mid round kind of projection. I would think now he'll probably return. He's got some eligibility left. I can see Sam Levitt returning for another season and working on boosting that draft stock.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it makes more sense to return. If he was a guy that, yeah, he's injured, but he's going to be a first round pick or a second round pick, yeah, I get it. Jump now. But everybody that I've spoken to says, hey, he's likely third round is your top end. He might even be a midday 3 guy. So why come out sooner? Even though I know people love to say, well, the sooner you can get started towards that second contract, I get it. But it's a little different for a quarterback when you're not going to be chosen in the first 3 rounds. Because as we both know, if you're a 4th to a 7th round pick as a quarterback, after about a year or two, if you haven't shown much, they're showing you the door because they drafted somebody else in those middle to late rounds. So quarterbacks have a weird shelf life. Either it's great for them or it's awful. So for this kid, why not return another year? Probably earn some more money, more than he would as a day 3 pick,
Sure.
and get a chance to raise his stock. I mean, there have been a lot of quarterbacks in recent years that you thought were mid-round picks. They go back for a final year. They get one more year of learning, one more year of the game slowing down, and all of a sudden they play better and they get picked higher. So to me, I don't always advocate going back, but in this case, I think it would be a smart decision for him.
Yeah, no, I agree. Both short term and long term, because you've got the NIL factor in the modern day college football landscape. A quarterback of that caliber, one of the quarterbacks I'm sure we'll talk about in the Vanderbilt game, Diego Pavia, is collecting over $2 million this year. So, what will the market fetch for a Sam Levitt, right? And then he can come back, work on developing a little bit more and elevating his draft stock for the 2026 NFL draft. Of course, we're going to count you down, like I mentioned, in 173 days. Unbelievable until we get to that 2026 NFL draft. So, Russ, let's buckle up. Let's hunker down. Let's get into some of the action today. Let's start off with the Big Ten affair. Number 23, USC, 5-2, traveling to Nebraska, 6-2. This one's going to be a primetime affair on NBC at 7:30. And before we get into the prospects, we talked about Matt Rule aligning himself up for a Boku payday, and Nebraska takes care of business, keeps Rule back. I think $15 million guaranteed if he were, to avoid him from opting out this year. Now, I think the can of worms may still be open for next year, but at least for the short term, it looks like Rule is going to stay put in Nebraska, which makes sense because they got a very good young quarterback.
You got a good young quarterback, and it's a great example of the grass isn't always greener. Even though he's a Penn State guy and obviously was a walk on there and played there, he's got it going in a good direction at Nebraska. Why jump ship now? We talked about it, that opening at Penn State and some of the other ones were going to lead to guys getting extensions. Rule is not the only one. I mean, just look right down at SMU. Rhett Lashley, a lot of people are talking about him being a guy that could move up to like a Power 4 program. And all of a sudden SMU says, whoa, 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 we got to get this locked down, just like we talked about Indiana last week. I mean, these big openings lead to some coaches getting great job security. I think Rule is in a great spot. I think he's got it going in the right direction. He's got a good GM in Stewart, who was in the NFL for a long time. The two of them working together, I think it's going to pair well for the future. Stay there. It's easier. And truthfully, are you going to tell me that going to Penn State and State College is a better location than Lincoln? I mean,
not right now,
right? I mean, it's a hard sell to me when the whole state of Nebraska is going to pour money in for NIL. You're going to have a lot more funds, where at State College, it may not be as easy to get that outdoor money or the outside money into the program. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Rule to stay there.
Yeah, and at this stage of his career, like, he's a little bit longer in the tooth now. He's kind of been there and done that with rebuilding programs from scratch. Like, you're 3 years into the program now at Nebraska. You already built Baylor. You built Temple. Like, here's a place where you can actually stay a while and build off of Dominic Raiola and the next wave of recruits. And actually, we remember Nebraska being a blue blood program and winning national championships. And I think the goal or the task to get back to that is a shorter road in Lincoln than it is in Happy Valley.
Well, because he's already got the foundation is there, right? He's got the structure, he's got the people. He doesn't have to come to Penn State and say, "Hey, who from Nebraska wants to come with me?" Some won't come. So he's got a good thing set up. And I've heard a bunch of people tell me around the NFL to say, don't be shocked if he puts in 5 to 7 more years at Nebraska, kills it, and some NFL team says, let's give it another shot. He was a highly regarded coach when he came into the NFL. Didn't go great, but there have been a lot of coaches who failed the first time, did great the second time. So I think it makes sense. Stay at Nebraska. You got the ball rolling down the hill already. Why screw with it and go to a program where you don't know what the future holds?
Yeah, and the Nebraska Cornhuskers were ranked earlier in the season, an opportunity to get back into the poll. 23 ranked USC on the road here. Nebraska unranked, so a win would probably put them back into the top 25. And, who knows? Maybe they can make a run here late in the season, and who knows how high Nebraska can climb up the ladder. But let's start off with the USC Trojans, Russ. Let's take a look at the Trojans prospects because this is a team where expectations have kind of waned in the last year or two, but Lincoln Riley runs a tight ship. And what do you see from these Trojans, guys?
Well, firstly, I see a lot of Lincoln and the whole staff there. It's almost like this year, and you're never going to say, hey, they were planning for this year to be a down year. But I think a lot of it was we're looking at 26-7. They have a lot of good young players. They don't have a lot of guys that are seniors that are frontline NFL guys, but they've got some young guys, including their quarterback, Jaden Maiva. He's not a young guy, but he's not going to be in this year's draft likely. But they've got a lot of young guys that are going to be there. But they do have a veteran center in Reed. Not a huge kid, under 6'3", 320 pounds, but he's been a good, consistent player at USC. I think he's got a chance to get into the NFL. I don't know if he's got enough to become a starter, but I like what he brings to the table. Their tight end, McCree, good football player, catches the ball well. I think he's an underrated athlete. You don't hear him talked about in the elite tight end class around the country, but he's a good football player. But offensively, you have those two guys and you got the quarterback, and a lot of it really after that is underclassmen. It's not like they're loaded with seniors. Defensive side of the ball, they got some really intriguing guys. Anthony Lucas at defensive end, sort of more of a power guy, because where is he going to fit at the next level? I don't know if at 275, 80, he's really going to be an edge guy. I think he's going to be more of a control power, coming in and doing a little 3 technique at the next level, but he's a really good football player. He gets pressure. He's got long arms. I like the kid. Their linebacker, Gentry, their safety, Fitzgerald, both these guys are around the ball a lot. Gentry is that long kid. We talked about him earlier in the year. Not many linebackers that are over 6'6" that are effective because it hinders their ability to change directions. But this kid's pretty agile for a tall kid. He can run. He can cover. I look at this kid as sort of that guy that could be a multi-dimensional weapon at the next level. You could cover tight ends with this kid, but he can also run and chase plays down. And I think in time, with some coaching, with some development, maybe add 20 pounds, he could really be that sort of designated pass rush guy because he's got the length. I think he's going to be a guy that probably doesn't go as high as I think he'll end up. People will look back and say he should have gone higher in the draft. I like him a lot. Fitzgerald, good safety, not the ideal size, under 5'11". Nicholson, the cornerback who transferred from Mississippi State, pretty looking kid, over 6'2", 200 pounds, long, linear guy, has a lot of the tools that you like for an NFL corner. And I know we talked about him last time. I like to joke, but hey, you got to look at special teams. Hank Pepper, their long snapper, not a big kid, probably doesn't have the size that NFL teams are going to want as a snapper because he's under 6'1", 215 pounds or so. Most teams don't like their snapper to be so little because they can get trucked. Even though you can't rush the snapper, you can rush the snapper and the guard, and somehow a 212-pounder gets driven backwards. But he's a good snapper. I think he's going to probably get a chance as an undrafted free agent. Always take a peek at your snapper. They're hard to find.
Yeah, very good. And also, you mentioned Gentry, somebody I think you got to make sure to do your due diligence because I do believe he had some concussion issues earlier in his career, and we'll see how that plays out with his draft stock. He's going to test through the roof. He's very athletic at 6'6", 225 pounds, very quick and explosive, can rush the quarterback, maybe plays off-ball linebacker. I mean, he's going to be an interesting case study. And then as well, if he does declare, Kamari Ramsey, redshirt junior, 6 foot 2/8 inches, 204 pounds, another athletic tester, isn't having a statistical standout season, but if you watch him on film, he shows up play after play, flying around the field. And you mentioned, Jaden Maeva, who actually got off to a hot start. The Hawaii native did, is maybe cooled down a little bit here. There was some talk maybe he could dip his toes into the draft pool. Of course, Lincoln Riley has 5 starting quarterbacks in the National Football League currently, so you always got to make sure you check in on the QBs there. And we haven't spoken about the 2 receivers, Mekhi Lemon, who I almost fully expect to declare because he's one of the top-rated wide receivers. He's more of the speed element of the duo between him and Jacoby Lane, also a redshirt junior. Lane a little bit bigger, 6'3" and 5/8", 195 pounds. And it's a little bit frustrating when you watch Jacoby Lane because he's so big, he's so athletic, he should be dominating, and you just don't see it. I've seen a couple drops show up, but I was expecting a lot more out of Jacoby Lane. I think his ceiling might be higher, but in terms of a step in, plug and play, speed burner type of playmaker wide receiver, Mekhi Lemon looking very good.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think when you look at underclassmen, I think it's interesting that you have Lemon, who to me, there's something special athletically. There's something there that teases you. The other guy you look at and you say, okay, is this that sort of Tarzan Jane guy? He looks the part, he should be better, but he doesn't do it all the time. And I will say, if you look at the history of receivers that looked the part, flashed, and then got to the NFL and made it, it's a very, very short list.
Tough.
Generally, bigger guys dominate in college. Sometimes it's the smaller, twitchier guys who didn't get that great production in college, who maybe had a few catches here and there, and they get to the NFL and the light goes on. The bigger guys, it usually doesn't happen because they've already been in an environment where they're bigger, stronger, and faster. And the fact they couldn't do it, usually it doesn't work out at the next level, which is a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, a couple other Trojans players to be aware of. Wayman Jordan, somebody we talked about earlier in the season, stepped in nicely for Woody Marks, made some plays. He's currently injured, been battling some injuries. We'll see. I don't think he'll declare for the draft. He's a junior, and I do not believe Elijah Page will declare. He's only a redshirt sophomore, but they're starting left tackle at 6'6", 5/8", 320 pounds. Just another name that you need to know for the future watch here at the NFL Draft Watch Show. Russ Landy, Rick Saratella, breaking it down, chopping it up. We thank you so much for tuning in. Please smash that like button, share it, subscribe it. We're talking about the USC at Nebraska matchup. We just spoke about the USC players. Let's dive into the Nebraska Cornhuskers, Russ, because not a lot of draft eligible. Well, they have draft eligible players, not a lot of seniors once again. I think Dane Key, their wide receiver, 6'2", 210 pounds. He's kind of showed up on the radar. He comes and goes. Big week, bad week. You'd like to see a little bit more consistency out of him. But who else do you got here for the Nebraska Cornhuskers?
Well, it's an interesting thing you mentioned. Do they have a lot of top prospects? No. Do they have a number of seniors that are playing that are probably going to get undrafted opportunities? Yeah, and it's a matter of which one develops. Both guards are pretty good players. They're good college guards. Whether they have enough to take the next step, I mean, you have Litovsky at left guard, huge kid, 6'6", 326, 33-inch arms. And then you got Spindler, right guard, a little under 6'5", 320, shorter arms at 31. They're good football players. Do they have the athleticism to make the jump and stick? I think it's going to be a tough sell. The one I'm interested to see is the Turner Cochran.
Yeah.
He started a bunch of games at tackle. He's been rotating the past few games, just under 6'6", 320, 33-inch arms. He's a good athlete. He doesn't get enough credit, I think, for his athletic ability. He's got enough length that you like that. I think he's going to be a guy, despite rotating through some of this year, he's going to get a chance. I wouldn't be surprised to see him as a PR type guy for a year to see if they can unlock, because you see stuff in games that you say, oh, that's really good. And then you see some disappointment, some inconsistency. Can the best be gotten out of them? On the defensive side of the ball, they have a number of seniors. None of them are guys that people are banging down the door, but you have the nose tackle, Judy, guy that wasn't even regarded on the list entering the season. You have really 3 linebackers in McCullough, a big, tall kid, similar to the kid we talked about with USC. This kid's 6'5", 230, big, long arms, athletic kid. He's not as twitchy and as fast as Gentry, but a kid that's really intriguing. You have Javian Wright, another big linebacker, 6'4", 220s, kid that can run, wasn't on the preseason list, has played well this year. And then they got a rover, sort of a safety linebacker in Singleton, another kid, 6'2", 210, runs really well for a 200-plus pounder. Then you have Sayer Wright, the corner, not a huge kid, just under 6 foot, but athletic, skinny as a rail, but a good football player. And then the other one that's interesting to me, a kid that came into the year, excuse me, is a little bit of a intriguing prospect, but sort of people are trying to figure out where he fits, is the Buford kid. He had been a corner prior to the year, had played out there most of the time, but now he's been rotating as a safety most of this year. Doesn't have the measurables you want, under 5'10", 185 pounds. But when you watch him play, instinctive kid, tough kid, knows what's going on in front of him. Just, he's not a big guy. Where do you fit him on defense? So they have some guys there on defense that are good, solid players. I just don't know how many are legitimate, make it NFL guys. The McCullough linebacker to me is the most intriguing guy other than Dane Key. There's something about that kid with his length and his speed. I think he's got a chance to be better in the pros than he has been so far in college.
Yeah, he showed some flashes over at Oklahoma early on in his career, and then kind of got phased out and landed in Lincoln, as did their big offseason portal acquisition, Elijah Pritchett, who's a redshirt junior now. He somehow escaped Georgia, started off at Alabama, comes to Nebraska. He's a run mauling guy that needs to improve his pass blocking, struggles with the speed a little bit. And he's got some issues now. I mean, he struggled with some weight in the past. He's also had some arrests, off the field issues that NFL decision makers are going to have to look into. But certainly somebody to keep an eye on moving forward is Elijah Pritchett. And he started at left tackle, right tackle. He's got the versatility, like you mentioned, with Turner Cochran, who I like Turner Cochran, and he was here with the previous coaching staff, I believe, and he actually started, I think, as a true freshman. Tons of experience. You mentioned the versatility. He may even be able to play center, and when you got a guy who has starting experience at tackle, starting experience at guard, to play all 5 positions, those guys are very valuable at the next level, especially come game day. So I totally agree. I think he's a guy that sticks around, gets a good hard look, and probably makes a roster. So one other guy for the future watch, he's draft eligible technically, Nyzia Hunter, redshirt sophomore, 6'1" and 6'8", 210 pounds. Keep a lookout for that young man as he can stretch the field a little bit. Any final thoughts here on Nebraska, Russ?
Well, I just got to, I love it. At least I think people love it when I bring up some of the old stories. But you mentioned the Cochran, the starting early in his career, a lot of experience. I still remember sitting in the Rams draft room, and I was a scouting assistant. So I'd only scouted a few handful, probably 20 or 30 small school kids that our GM had assigned me that maybe had not been looked at. But we get in our meetings, and there's a kid from Texas. He started 4 years. He was 21 years old, and he had started every game for 4 years. And we're in our meetings, and our GM is like, "What? Where's the report on this kid? Like, he's not on our draft board." And the guy's like, "Yeah, he's a reject." And our GM, and this is Charlie Army, the guy who fired me, so trust me, he and I weren't on the best of terms, but he was brilliant, very, very smart guy. He said, "Hey," he goes, "let's just remember," he said, "if we take the whole globe, how many human beings are 6'6" and 350 pounds?" He goes, "We got a small number already. How many," he goes, "are willing to trade years off their lives to play for this game that's really violent?" He goes, "All right, that number's smaller." He goes, "How many started 4 years at a premier program?" He goes, "All right, we're down to like 20 guys." He goes, "Even if he's horrible, he's a good undrafted free agent because he's been through the battles." And he goes, "You can't ever find enough tackles." He goes, "You're scraping for him when you get through training camp and guys are hurt." So it's a great lesson for me to hear how hard it is to find guys who have started at major programs. So when you look at this Cochran kid and say, "Hey, he may not be perfect, but he has a lot of experience, major college football. He's got the length you want. He's obviously, the fact that he's still there and Rule didn't run him out tells you he's a good kid." So there's a lot there to really think that this kid, in the worst case, is going to be an undrafted guy. But with all those things and the versatility, I could see him being a late round pick.
No doubt about it. He's Russell Landy. I'm Rick Saratella. We give you behind the scenes. We give you current events. We give you it all over here on the NFL Draft Watch Show each and every Saturday. Again, smash that like button, share it, subscribe it. We're going to get into our second marquee matchup of the day, Russ. Let's go over to Oklahoma, the 18th ranked Sooners, 6-2, at number 14 ranked Tennessee Volunteers, also 6-2. This one's going to be on ABC at 7:30. And you got two signal callers, Joey Aguilar, who's playing very good, and John Mateer, who was playing almost Heisman worthy until he ran into that hand injury. We haven't seen the same quarterback since he came back from that surgery, missed a couple weeks. Any just overview thoughts on this matchup before we dive into the prospects?
Well, firstly, I think you nailed Mateer on the head. As this kid was playing great football, and you almost wonder, is his desire to be out there, desire to help the team, got him back soon? Like once he was medically cleared, did he say, I'm playing, even if I may not be playing at the level I want to play? And I think you've seen inconsistency from him. And I think Aguilar is a great example of, hey, here's a quarterback that sort of got kicked to the side by UCLA. He sort of said, you know what? That's part of what college is for. Maturing, dealing with rough situations. He's gone to Tennessee. Is he a perfect player? No. But has he gotten better? Has he played more calm, more mature than a lot of people, I think, expected? Without question. So it's a really interesting matchup between two quarterbacks who transferred in at programs that historically are not big on the transfer quarterbacks. So I'm interested to watch the game. I think it's going to be a heck of a game.
All right, well, let's get into it. We'll take a look at the Oklahoma Sooners top prospects first, and we touch base slightly on Mateer. Let's start with John Mateer because to me, Russ, I see a guy who's a playmaking point guard type of quarterback, can beat you with his feet, beat you with his arm, but really at this stage of the process, more of a one-read quarterback. He looks to take off and run it a little bit too much for my liking. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't have all the tools. I'm not saying he can't develop. But for somebody we were talking about, I mean, I saw people putting him up there as the number one pick, first round pick. Let's pump the brakes a little bit because he is just a redshirt junior. I do think this quarterback class is going to thin out quickly. And guys like Mateer are going to say, hey, what? I can go back, collect the NIL payday, and boost my draft stock. I think John Mateer fits into that category.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that he's a guy that should be going back for another year. I think when you watch him, and this is where you'd love to be in the building, be able to talk to the coaches, find out where he is in terms of reading defenses and stuff. But yeah, you talk a lot about him. He's an athletic kid. I think he's a vastly underrated athlete. He can be an accurate throw, but he's a little bit inconsistent at times. I'd like to see more consistency now, and that's the question: is it the injury, or have teams sort of figure out here are his strengths, here are his weaknesses? I want to see more of him. I think coming back for another year would help. We've talked about the Deion Burks kid. I mean, this kid is a twitchy little kid, 5'9" and change, 180 pounds. He gets the ball out in space. He can make guys miss. He's got legit pull away, go home run speed. The big kid, Keontae Lewis, came into the year sort of unknown, had a good solid year. I like him. He's a taller kid, over 6'1". There's something there. We keep talking about, every time we talk about Oklahoma, the tight end Kanik. I like this kid. He's more of that H guy because he's 6'1" and change, 230. But talk about a kid that catches the ball. He's athletic. I like what he does. Offensive line, the Derek Simmons kid is intriguing because he looks the part when you see a big, thick-bodied kid, but he's got shorter arms. I don't know if he really has the athleticism to really stay outside. I think he's probably going to be a guard projection. And then I know I'm going to screw this kid's name up, but Fabechi Nuahu, 6'4", 326 approximately, came over from North Texas. Good, strong physical guard. I think he and Simmons are guys that are probably going to be UDFAs. Defensively, they have two D linemen, Marvin Jones. We've talked about him a bunch. A guy that knows how to get after the quarterback, more of an edge guy. And then you have Mason Thomas, the other defensive end, a little bit smaller at 6'1" and change, a little bit smaller, probably 245, 250, but a little bit twitchier. Seems to have a better feel for how to defeat guys and get to the quarterback. And then you have Demonic Williams, the interior guy, 6'1", 300 plus pounds. All three of these guys are going to get drafted potentially in the first two rounds. Very good football players. The Daniels linebacker, another long kid, 6'4", 240, runs well, going to be a mid-round pick. And the safety Spears Jennings. This kid's a good football player, 6'1", 211. He can run. He has a good feel for what's going on in front of him. What I like about him is He's not huge, but at 211, he's willing to come up and he's willing to make some plays physically. So there's something to like there. I think Oklahoma's got a really good core on defense of legit draft eligible guys. They're going to get 4 or 5 guys drafted in the first 4 rounds.
Yeah, Venables definitely knows defense over there. And they got a couple guys who've kind of popped onto the radar. Guys like Grayson Holton, who's playing very well, the defensive tackle, a little bit short, height and length, 6'2", 295, only 31 and 1/8 inches arms, but somebody, who might be a high priority free agent with make it type of traits. Isaiah Satanga, the redshirt junior. I mean, this is one of the fastest players in college football. 5'9" and 5/8, 182 pounds. He's been timed in the 4.3 range. He's also a kick returner. So when he does decide to declare for the draft, that's going to maybe boost his draft stock a little bit more, and he can really separate along with Deion Burke. So, Mateer has some speed burners to really throw to in that offense. It's unbelievable. Marvin Jones Jr., you mentioned, obviously he started off, he bounced around a lot of big-time pedigree and never really, the light bulb never went on. But again, 6'4", 2/8, 260 pounds, long, lengthy, athletic, NFL bloodlines. Of course, Marvin Jones, good friend of the show, former number 4 overall pick in the 1993 draft. Some of us actually remember that, Russell Landy. And
yeah, unfortunately.
And one guy who's just been very disappointing, and a couple years ago, I was bananas about Jaden Ott. I don't know what the heck happened. There was all kinds. I know he got hurt last year at Cal, but there was a lot of big expectations. You've heard almost zilch from Jaden Ott, and it's been a little bit unfortunate there for him.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, I think he has not become what people had hoped. And you mentioned Marvin Jones. Marvin is, and I mentioned he's an intriguing kid, but where does he fit? He's not that special twitchy edge guy. And he's not that big power guy. I think you got to find a home for him. I think the Mason Thomas may not have the bloodlines, may not have the look when you put them next to each other, but I think he's got a better feel for defeating guys and getting to the quarterback. I think he has a little bit more twitch. There's something about Thomas I like when I watch them play, but I will say that is a good defense. They have some prospect with Thomas, with Williams, with Daniels, and I really think the Spears-Jennings kid could be the sleeper of their whole defense.
Yeah, Spears-Jennings should test pretty well, too. That should help him, give him a little bump in the draft. All right. Russ Landy, Rick Saratella, breaking it down, chopping it up. We're just breezing on through the show, almost halfway down here, and we're going to get over to the Tennessee Volunteers prospects. And we mentioned it at the beginning. Joey Aguilar, a redshirt senior, started at UCLA this season, and then when Nico bounced, they almost did a little trade. And Aguilar caught my attention, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. One of these Thursday night, Friday night football games, Appalachian State. I think it was against NC State, maybe. Pouring rain, torrential downpour. Aguilar just fourth quarter comeback, rallies the troops, puts the team on his back, takes him down the field, throwing darts. And then, it kind of went away for a little bit, and now he's back in Tennessee playing very high-level football.
Yeah, he really is. I think when you watch him play, you see the deep ball. You see a kid that I think is I think everything he's gone through in his college career, I think it's that maturity. We've talked about it a lot. College starts translate. The number of college starts translate a lot of the time to success in the NFL because you're calmer, you've got a better feel, you're not rushed. And I think when you watch him play, you see a guy who's matured. Now, is he a frontline guy that you're going to consider in the first round? No, I don't think he is. But I think what you see is you see a guy with a lot of the physical tools to at least be a backup quarterback in the NFL. And I think the maturity he has gained throughout this process is really going to help him. He's a guy I think's got a really bright future. Now, like I said, I'm not saying he's going to be a first-round pick, not even saying he's going to be a starter at the next level, but I think the maturity and the talent gives him a chance to carve out a role in the NFL as that backup guy that has a good career. They don't have a ton of like senior weapons. I know you're going to throw all the underclassmen out there because you know all those guys. But the Kittlesman kid, we talk about him whenever we talk about Tennessee. He's an underrated tight end, almost 6'5", 260, smooth and fluid, not twitchy and explosive, catches the ball well. He's been a good weapon for Aguilar. And defensively, they are loaded. Their whole D-line, Josh Josephs, Dominic Bailey. Josephs obviously is their best prospect. I mean, this kid is a legit edge guy. He gets after guys, but that whole D-line, Dominic Bailey, more of a power defensive end. Then you have the Bryson Easton, the Jackson Moy guy, 2 defensive tackles, good football players, both over 300 pounds. They've got that sort of joker safety, Jalen McMurray, and you talked about him last time, the Turrentine kid, the DB. And I'll give you one tidbit on the Tennessee guys that I just found out this week when I was talking to a handful of scouts around the league about unrelated stuff. But it turned out 3 or 4 of them that I spoke to all have Tennessee on their that's in their area. And all of them said, these people got to realize McCoy should not be a guy people are talking about as a high pick. They said he's not going. They said, A, most likely from what they've heard, he is going back. And they said, B, even if he does, he may not even go that high because people don't know where he's at medically. They said there's some real concerns when he's going to be full speed to be able to test and show stuff. So a handful of scouts told me this week, they said he pumped the brakes. They said not that he's not going to have eventually a very good NFL career, but they said right now there's a good chance he's not coming out this year. Even though they're saying he's getting ready. I got told there's a good chance he's going to sit this year and either come back next year and get that NIL money or come out and not really expect to be a first-round pick because of the injury history.
Yeah, I've been kind of perplexed by everybody just anointing him some kind of blue chip prospect because this day and age, you see guys fly back from the ACL injury. This has been lingering now. And at this point, like, unless Tennessee wins this game, it might not even be worth him coming back. Like, if they don't have a shot at the college football playoff. And I just go back to last year's draft. Everybody was talking about Will Johnson, and he was hurt. He was injured.
Yeah.
And
and remember, this isn't an injury from last season. This is an injury from January.
Yeah.
So he's right now at that 9-month period. And I know when I blew my knee out, not that I'm a top athlete, but the thing I kept hearing from different NFL people, I asked for information, and said 9 months is the big, you sort of draw that line in the sand. If you come back before that 9th month is up and get out there and really start practicing, they say the injury rate is astronomical. They say you got to get past that before you even start really practicing. So you got to think he's being cautious. I think his film is good from prior to the injury.
Sure.
But do you risk it? To me, it'd be crazy to try to play this year. Either come out and roll the dice on what NFL teams see medically, or get paid, stay at Tennessee, and play for another year. And then you have a chance to really prove yourself as a top corner in the draft.
Yeah, 5'10" and 6'8", 193 pounds. I don't know what's going to happen with Jermod McCoy.
Well, 5'10" corners.
Yeah.
They're coming off an ACL. I wouldn't bet the history is very strong to those guys. I would think it's not something a lot of teams
sell in the war room.
Yeah, exactly. That's a tough battle to fight if you're a scout.
One guy, though, who caught my attention, Chris Brazzell II out of Tennessee, 6'4".
You've mentioned him a few times. I always forget about him. 200
pounds. He's a little bit raw with the route runner, but he's got some long speed, uses his body well. You see him box guys out. Definitely want to see him kind of polish up the route tree, but he'll be in that day 2 conversation. I do believe that. And Dean Bishop is a running back that's a redshirt sophomore. Just keep an eye on him in the future. We try to give you all the draft eligible players. And Arian Carter is having a very good year. The junior linebacker, 6'1", 236 pounds, should test very well. Of course, Star Thomas was the feature back. He ran into some injury issues, and he's a senior with, I think, 1 year of eligibility left. So maybe with the injury, he returns back for another year. And then just a guy that'll probably be in a training camp, Tyree West, 6'1" and 4/8", 277-pound defensive tackle, a little bit light, but 33 2/8-inch arms, big old gargantuan hands. Maybe Tyree West is a guy that gets brought into a training camp. And you like to talk special teams. He's on our radar, Russ, as a redshirt junior. Jackson Ross. I'm just telling you, Jackson Ross, the big 6'3", 205-pound punter out of Australia. These Australia punters are hot commodities now, but he's also on the NFL draft radar.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, one of the things, and I didn't know this until about 10 years ago when I started in the CFL and started really diving deep on where these kids come from, is way back when, and I should have known this as a longtime Chargers fan, Darren Bennett came to the NFL and became the best punter in the NFL. He was an Australian rules guy. When he retired after a career that really changed football, because before him, there was one way to punt. He came in and showed, oh, drop the ball this way. Oh, hold the ball this way,
Yeah.
because that's how they do it in Australian rules football. He actually opened an academy over in Australia. And somewhere in the vicinity of 25% of punters and kickers in college football now, or in Division One football, come either through his academy or at least through Australia and New Zealand that have been evaluated, maybe not through his academy. So the pipeline is big. And that's why you have so many punters and kickers now that are 28, 26, because they play in the Australian Pro Football League. Then after a handful of years, when they realize they may never hit that top spoke, they come over here, get the scholarship in hopes of punting in the NFL or kicking in the NFL. So it's really become sort of a pipeline. It's a very unique thing. If you look around college football, there are Australian guys punting and kicking everywhere.
Dude, it's almost a given. Like, we do the global prospect tracker now for the teams over on the website, and I scroll through almost every roster to look at the hometowns. Almost every college football roster has a kicker or a punter from Australia. Some of them have multiple. It's insane.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. I mean, I still remember when I was in Montreal in 2021 and we had the global draft. And we weren't talking about the punter Zima. And I was like, guys, I don't know why we're not. But I said, I know this kid's Australian, but I mean, this kid's a legitimate guy. We got to be on the board for. And we ended up really sitting down as a group watching film, took him, and he's been their punter now for 5 years. So, I mean, these Australian kids, it's amazing. If you start at 2 or 3 punting, you're really ahead of the game. Where a lot of guys that punt in America, they don't really start until they're in high school because they just give it to the guy who's maybe got the strongest leg. So it's a different thing. These the Australian rules, New Zealand kids coming from there for kicking and punting, it's changed the sport forever.
Yeah, Shane Leckler, another big-time Australian punter who paved the way for others. All right, he's Russell Landy. I'm Rick Saratella. We got one more game to preview here on the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. We just got done talking USC and Nebraska. We also previewed Oklahoma and Tennessee. Let's take a look at what I believe is going to be the marquee matchup of the day. And I know we've spoken about Vanderbilt quite a bit, but they are ranked number 9, Russ, believe it or not, 7-1, traveling into Texas. Never an easy place to play down there in Austin. The Longhorns hanging on in the top 25. They're ranked number 20th now, 6-2. This one's going to be an early kickoff at noon on ABC. And the Longhorns actually come in as a slight favorite in this matchup, Russ.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised at that. I mean, we've talked a million times about Arch Manning. We don't even know where he's at in terms of got the ding last week.
He did get cleared, I think.
Yeah,
yeah.
But we don't know how he's going to play. I mean, most of these guys, the first game back, when they get a ding, it's not particularly good. And he has had his ups and downs like most first-year starting quarterbacks. I'm a little surprised Texas is a favorite. I know it's Texas. I know it's tough to play there. But this Diego for Vanderbilt, the thing that's unique about him, at least, I mean, we know he's been everywhere and he's played a ton of college football. I think, along with, I mentioned this with the Aguilar kid at Tennessee, I think when you watch Diego play, he doesn't get flustered. And I think that's going to help him taking a team that obviously Vanderbilt historically has been a doormat in the SEC. They're going to Texas, which normally you would say anytime you go to Texas, I don't care how much better Vanderbilt is, they're going to lose because of the environment going on the road. I think Diego's going to be calm. I think to him, this is just another day rolling out playing ball. I think he's going to have a really good day. The more I watch this kid play, the more I wonder if some NFL team is going to say, all right, I know he can't be our starter, but can he be our versatile backup on game day? Because this kid seems to have ice in his veins. He could be thrown into any situation. He may not be good enough to make plays as a starter, but he probably can get us out of a game. And he's not going to panic. He's not going to make big mistakes. The more I see this kid, there's something about him I like. There's something unique about this kid. And I do think if you ever wanted to take a pay cut and go to the CFL, this kid could be a star up there. I mean, you have to take a big pay cut now from $2 million at Vanderbilt to about $500 or $600 if he becomes a starter in the CFL. But still, not a bad way to earn a living.
Yeah, I mean, it's the moxie, right? It's the it factor that you like about Pavier. And, you know, I'm not a big fan of some of his deep ball passes, but he does work the short to intermediate field well. He can scramble. He's one of the more elusive runners in college football. We had him listed at 5'9" and 6/8 inches in the spring. Hopefully he's been doing some stretching exercises, right? You know, maybe he can
Wasn't
get
that little Bobby on the Brady Bunch? Maybe
yeah.
hanging on the bar.
Yeah. Dylan Gabriel was about 5'11", right, or so.
Yeah.
So there is some hope at the pro level for Diego Pavier, but I do agree he would be a hit maker in the Canadian Football League. He's tough, he's gritty, he's fast, he's got leadership, he's a team captain there at Vanderbilt, and we've got over 24 scouting reports on the website with these Vanderbilt Commodores. Russ, I was down there in training camp. Let's start highlighting some of these top players.
Well, I mean, whenever obviously we've talked about Diego, he's an interesting guy. He's a good football player, and I like their O line. Chase Mitchell, their left tackle. Bryce Henderson, their right tackle. A little bit different. Chase is sort of a thicker 6'3", 6'4" type guy. Strong side offensive tackle. Powerful kid. Okay athlete, not a top level guy. Bryce Henderson is more of a stick figure at tackle. Over 6'7", 315 pounds. If you put them next to each other, you'd never think they're both playing the same position. But Henderson playing that weak tackle, which means he's a lot of time he's unprotected, doesn't have that tight end next to him. Not a huge athlete in terms of top level, but he's a good enough one. He's got length, obviously. Both these guys are going to get an opportunity in the NFL. Jordan White, the center, not a big kid, under 6'2", 298 pounds. Third stop from Liberty to West Virginia to Vanderbilt. Interested to see where he fits at the next level. We've talked about the Eli Stowers kid. This kid's going to play at the next level. He made a catch last week that was unbelievable. When I watch this kid, I look at it and say, okay, there are going to be some teams in the NFL say, well, he's a tweener. I don't know where he fits. And then I think you're going to have some smart teams that say, I don't care where he fits. He's athletic. He's smart. He has phenomenal hands. A smart coach is going to take this kid and say, how do I make a weapon and use him appropriately? Because, and I've talked about before, to me, this kid is Hunter Henry. There's a lot of similarities. I really like this kid's future at the NFL level.
High floor.
Really high floor. I mean, the worst case you're getting is a top tier backup. The best case, I think you're looking at a guy that could be a 60 catch guy. He may never be, obviously, the Kelsey type or the Pitts guy who just, whoop, I'm gone. But when you talk about an athletic kid who can run, who has a great feel for spacing, who has great hands to make tough catches, seems willing to catch balls in traffic and get punished, there's a lot to like about him. And I think a creative offensive coach, like a guy like Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator up there in New England, you look at him, and I'm not saying he's Aaron Hernandez talent, but there's a little bit of size similarity. And then Aaron wasn't that gigantic guy, and he wasn't this big, thick guy. He was more of an athlete. I look at Stowers and say, could he fit in that mold where you had the Gronk and you had the secondary guy who catches a lot of the intermediate underneath stuff where he can use his quickness? This kid Stowers, there's something there with this kid.
Well, I was going to say, too, our guy over at the Senior Bowl, Drew, who we talked down at the Personnel Symposium, I saw him come out and put a Dalton Kincaid comparison.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. Yeah, the guy that maybe isn't the biggest, most physical, dominant guy, but is smooth, is fast, athletic, has good hands, and has a great feel what's going on. I mean, this kid, there's a lot to like about him.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I am too. I do think there are going to be some teams that kill him. They can say, I don't want a 6'3", 235, 45-pound tight end. I want somebody taller. And those are generally the teams that end up losing because they're not creative enough to say, okay, maybe he's not the perfect measurable guy, but he can play ball. He's a talented enough player to help in the NFL. Where do I fit him? That's how good teams win. On the defensive side, I think they're very good. They just don't have they don't have a ton of players. Miles Capers, their defensive end, Zaylen Wood, their defensive tackle, both good players. I think Capers has a little bit more upside, but then you get into like Langston Patterson, the linebacker, Marlon Jones, Colby Taylor, good, solid prospects. I like both their corners. They're over 6 feet. Colby Taylor, 6'3". But when I look at them, I don't see a guy other than maybe Miles Capers who's probably getting drafted. I think a lot of these guys are 6th, 7th rounders, undrafted guys in that fringe area. We're not talking about first round guys or even first day guys or day 2 guys for their defensive guys.
Yeah, I mean, the one guy that fits in that mold is Corday Sidenor, who I saw down there. He's just a gargantuan body, 6'4" and 3/8 inches, bulked up 15 pounds, 272 pounds, big 35-inch arms, 84-inch wingspan. He's been a run stuffer. I was a little bit concerned about his conditioning when I saw him back in August. Looks like that's going to hold up okay. Coaches tell me he loves the process. He's always smiling. He's not afraid to hold players accountable and even be confrontational if needed. Now, he's not going to be a weight room guy or some big athletic tester. The strength coach actually compared him to Khalil Kasim, who he had in Notre Dame. So just a guy worth noting. Also, another guy to just be aware of. And the coaching staff told me he will not declare this year, but things change. You never know. He's not having a stellar season. He started off hurt, but Martell Height, he's the poor man's version of Travis Hunter. He plays cornerback, he plays wide receiver, he'll even return kicks a little bit. And offensive coordinator Jerry Kill has actually reached out to Coach Prime and been consulting with Deion Sanders in terms of how to utilize such a weapon in Martell Height, 6 foot, 188 pounds, runs like the wind out of Rome, Georgia, just somebody to keep an eye on. And we talked about Eli Stowers, and I'm a big fan of Stowers, but Cole Spence has come on, 6'5" and 6'8", 255 pounds. He's known for his blocking, but he's actually had a more involved role in the offense. That's a guy that is maybe going to get looked at late day 3 just because he's one of the better blocking tight ends in this year's draft. You know, when I was down there, Russ, a lot of the NFL scouts had love for Randon Fontenot. He's a junior at 6'2", 225 pounds, but has not really had a terrific year. So I'm expecting him to come back. You mentioned Cade McConnell, who went viral for some of his blocks on the social media. Jordan Singh, we had one of our scouts write up the defensive tackle there, undersized, might also get a look. You mentioned Bryce Henderson. He was a little bit stiff for me, a little bit stiff in the hips. Wasn't exactly a waist or knee bender, and he's got that length, so I am concerned about him. He's somebody who might kick up north as well. And I'll tell you what, man, you scroll the Vanderbilt prospects. Nick Rinaldi's a guy that popped onto the radar, the linebacker there. I mean, they really have hammered the transfer portal. They got the kid out of Germany, Odatara, 6'6", 320 pounds. He's a draft eligible guy. There's a slew of prospects on these Vanderbilt Commodores. Anybody that you care to follow up on there?
No, I mean, I think with Henderson, you make a good point. I mean, I think what you're getting with him is a long kid, knows what he's doing, has experience starting a ton of games, but he's not a premier athlete. I don't think there's any question that he's a top level athlete. I think what you're hoping with him is with the length that he can be your swing third guy on game day. And whether he's good enough to do that, whether he's strong enough, I don't know. You make a great point. A person like him going up to the CFL probably kill it because more and more CFL teams, it only took me being up there a decade and screaming it and yelling it, they've gone from 1 American to 2 Americans to now almost every team has 3 Americans starting on their O-line. So this is a perfect place for, it's hard enough to find good tackles anywhere. You get a kid that's 6'7". He started for 3 years of good college football with South Dakota and Vanderbilt. There's something about this kid. You put him up there in Canada where he gets that extra yard before the defensive end can get to him. This kid's a perfect guy for the CFL. He would be a guy that I'd be chasing after if I were a Canadian League team.
Oh, yeah. He's probably on an egg, I would think. All right, Russ Landy, Rick Saratella here, you out there. We're streaming live like we do each and every Saturday on the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. Breaking down Vanderbilt and Texas. We got one more team to get to today. They are the Texas Longhorns. They are a very inconsistent team. And I want to start off with Arch Manning. I know he's a redshirt sophomore. We talked about him at the top. He did play very well before that concussion last week, arguably his best game, but at this stage, I don't see any scenario where Arch Manning declares. In fact, I would say it's almost a 99% chance he's going to return for another year.
Yeah, I would think he would return. Firstly, I think he has the advantage of expertise from hearing from family members. Hey, this isn't, it's not a race. Yes, if you're a high-end starter who started 20 games, come out and get to that second contract. But he's not even done with 1 year as a starter. So why rush it? Get another year of experience. A lot of quarterbacks in college, the biggest jump they make as a player is first to second year as a starter. So next year, I'll bet you will see a whole different Arch, much more calm in the pocket, much more consistent throwing the ball. I think it would be a mistake for him to come out early. I think there's so much there to like, but it needs to be consistent. So why rush it? A quarterback can play till they're, as we're seeing with Aaron Rodgers, in their 40s. So he could still get almost 20 years in the NFL. Take your time, be patient. Don't rush this thing because, and you and I know this, the NFL is a cutthroat world. He comes in now, he struggles. They're not just going to keep him around because of his name. If he's not good enough to be on a roster, just go ask Chris Sims. How'd that work out for him? And I'm not knocking Chris. I'm just saying there's no loyalty to a name. And if Arch would have come out now and he struggled with consistency, you don't know how long that rope will be to give him an opportunity. So why not stay in school another year, get another year being young and enjoying life and growing and maturing as a player and a person. And next year he'll probably blossom on the stage we all expected this year. And then he can be in the contention to be a high draft pick and then get into the NFL.
Yeah, more and more quarterbacks were crossing off our board here as the show rolls along. We're very thin by the time we get to April here. But
it could be an EJ Manuel type year.
Yeah, even Kenny Pickett was the draft class. Was he a first or second round pick? He was
Kenny
right
was
there.
a first, yeah,
at the very end. But all right, lay it on us, Russ. Who you got for the Texas Longhorns here?
For Texas, I don't have a ton of senior guys. I mean, we've talked a ton about Arch Manning. I think DJ Campbell's probably their best overall prospect on offense. I mean, big guard, 320 pounds, almost 6'3", big long arms, plays physical. Not a premier guy that's going to test off the charts, but he's a good athlete. He's powerful, under control, stays over his feet. I think he's going to end up being a day 2 pick. I think this kid's going to play in the NFL a while. But to me, their best prospects are on the defensive side. Interestingly, we've talked about Ethan Burke all season. Big, long kid at 6'6", 260. We've talked about Hero Kanu, the defensive tackle who's sort of come out of nowhere. But to me, the most intriguing guy is the Trey Moore kid. This is a kid that came in as an elite player, but for whatever reason, he's been in and out of the lineup. He's played every game. And shockingly, he's been very productive despite not, quote unquote, starting. You look at each depth chart every week, he's not a starter, but the guy plays a lot. He's 5th on the team in tackles. He's a very athletic kid. He's a bit of a mismatch in terms of size. Like, where do you fit him? Is he a defensive end at the NFL level at 6'1" and change, 245? Or is he going to play off the ball? I think he's more of a go-forward type guy. Put him at defensive end. I like what he brings to the table. I think the kid's really productive. I want to see him get more opportunity. I'm excited to see what he does in this game. Is he going to be a disruptor to get in Diego's face and help Texas? On the back end, you have the cornerback Gulbo, and you have the safety Tafi. I'm not jumping up and down for either one of them. I think the cornerback at 5'11", 184 is a good, solid player. He doesn't get me excited as a guy that's going in the first 3 rounds. And Tafe, I don't know. He does not blow my doors off. Put it that way, as a safety.
Yeah, Taffy's going to be a cerebral kind of coach on the field, sideline to sideline guy. He keeps the plays in front of him, can stop the run a little bit, might be a liability in pass coverage. I think, Michael Taffy, to me, is somebody who's going to have to earn his keep on special teams.
No question.
At 5'11" and 6'8", 175 pounds. He's got a ton of experience, almost 200 career tackles, so the production is there. He'll get a look. But, yeah, probably falls short and doesn't check off all of the boxes. Anthony Hill checks off the boxes, though. He's got size. He's got speed. He's got athleticism. He got a little bit slow out of the gates this season. He's got ability to rush the passer. You saw him collect a couple sacks now this year. Off-ball linebacker, pass rusher, versatile guy. I think he does come out for this year's draft. Trevor Gooseby, the redshirt sophomore, we've talked about him. He's just somebody to be aware of at 6'6", 315 pounds, somebody who's gotten some first-round buzz a little bit. Malik Muhammad, the junior cornerback, 5'11" and 6'8", 190 pounds. Some people think very highly of him, but, man, you take a look at all the draft-eligible guys. They're almost underclassmen. C.J. Baxter is a redshirt sophomore. Quentin Wisner is kind of falling off a little bit. He's a junior. Jack Endries has been coming on, the redshirt junior tight end, 6'4", 240 pounds, a pass-catching option in that offense there for the Longhorns. So not a lot of definite exhausted redshirt seniors. Trey Moore's a redshirt senior. He's exhausted his eligibility. But, I guess the good news here for Steve Sarkisian, Russ, is somebody who maybe was looking to go elsewhere. If he just comes back, retains the talent, maybe adds a couple pieces, I mean, you would expect Texas to be reloaded and make a run for next season, especially if Arch Manning stays intact.
Oh, I think there's no question. I think he's in a great spot. I mean, they've got a good staff there. I think they're going to be able to bring in some portal kids. I think they have some young guys, like you mentioned, that are on the verge of next year being guys we talk about as top draft guys. I think Arch will be a far better quarterback. And people may or may not know, but let's remember, a year ago, there were a number of NFL teams that reached out to Sark and said, "We want to interview you." I know there were two. I heard there may have been a third, and he turned them down to stay at Texas and get a deal. So I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he wants to be there. I think he wants to coach Arch. I think he's going to get that opportunity next year. I think if Arch explodes and has an unbelievable year and goes high in the draft, then I think you might see Sark jump and take that NFL opportunity. But I think for right now, the future is very bright in Texas. It's just this year they're struggling through what almost every team in college football struggles with when you have a first-time starting quarterback. I think for whatever reason, people heard Arch Manning and wanted to forget that he had never really been a starter before. And they just wanted to anoint and say, oh, he's going to be an All-American the first time he steps out there and starts 5 or 6 games. And that's not how it works in college football. So I think the future is very bright there. I think you just got to be patient and give them 2026. Texas could be an elite team.
All right, he's Russell Landy. I'm Rick Saratella. We're winding down here on the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. Just a quick peek ahead to next week. Some big games who we may talk about next week. Oregon at Iowa is a good one. How about BYU and Texas Tech could have college football playoff ramification. Texas A&M at Missouri, another SEC matchup. So some good games to get ahead to. LSU at Alabama will definitely be interesting. We can shelf our Brian Kelly conversation for next week. We'll see if they have a new head coach intact by then. But before we let you go, Russ, I know you're a professor now. You're teaching courses through the Sports Management Worldwide program after getting your doctorate degree. You're also teaching the football GM and scouting course over at smww.com. For the first-time listeners who are not aware, tell everybody at home what they'll be getting, what they'll be learning, and what kind of experience the football GM and scouting course brings.
Okay, first off, just a note, because you mentioned some of next week's games. Oregon at Iowa. You talk about a matchup, sort of a clash of identities. Oregon, we like to throw the ball. We're fancy. We're going to do all that. They're coming to Kinnick Stadium in Iowa, in Iowa City. Iowa is as old school as you get in college football. This is going to be a great battle between a high-powered offense with Dante Moore and an old school defense with basically we're going to come out with bats and we're going to beat up the offense to slow them down.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a great matchup. I love watching when high-powered offenses come to Kinnick Stadium. It's a great matchup. In terms of SMWW, what I always want to tell people is, hey, it's an 8-week course where we're going to teach you the basic parameters of what you look for when you scout every position. And we're going to sort of give you a blueprint, sort of a skeleton that says, hey, here are ways to try to work your way in to finding a job working in football. And then once you're in football, if you can find a way in, then you can begin on your journey to the NFL. One of the things I always try to stress to people is getting to the NFL. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And a great example is as a young kid, you know him. I don't want to mention his name on the podcast because I didn't ask him ahead of time, but he took my class literally when he was a senior in high school with Sports Management Worldwide. While he was in college, he did some scouting for some media outlets, ended up working in college football, trying to get in the NFL, and he thought it was over. He thought he was never going to get there. He was over 30 years old. He worked at Rice. He worked at SMU. He worked at Houston. Ended up at Ole Miss. And what do you know? Out of the blue this year, an NFL job. Out of the blue. He had sort of thought it may never happen, and now he's a scout in the NFL. So it's not a marathon. It took him over a decade to be able to use the tools that I taught him to get into football, work your way into football, work at different college programs, and work your way up. So all I'm trying to say is I'm going to teach you the basics. I'm going to give you the parameters, but I also don't want anybody signing up saying, hey, I'm taking this class and in 8 weeks I'm getting hired by the Bengals. It's not how it works. I'm going to teach you the framework, the parameters, and hopefully you can parlay that into there's a handful of people in the CFL. the NFL, the media, college football that have taken the course, but it's not a guarantee. All it is a guarantee I'm going to teach you the basics.
It's a grind, and we talk about it all the time. It's harder to be an NFL scout than an NFL player, right? Because there's only
Statistically, there's no question. There's about 1,000 people in the whole country that are scouting in the NFL, the CFL, and the UFL combined, and there's about 2,500 playing in the NFL.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, Russ, we'll let you boogie on out of here, man. Always appreciate the time. My favorite day of the week, Saturday. Buckle up, hunker down, enjoy all the college football action today.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you having me as always.
All right, there he is, and there he goes, Russ Landy. I have two more announcements I want to make. Speaking of sports management worldwide, tomorrow I'll be hosting the Doc Talk with Dr. Lynn Lasbrook. Now, this is something that's just for Sports Management Worldwide alumni, but I know a lot of Sports Management Worldwide students do tune into the show. So I'm looking forward to speaking to everybody tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. And Russ mentioned the football GM and scouting course. Guys like John Wooten, guys like Mark Dominic, Dane Vandernet, good friend of the show, are also involved in that class. And we've got quite a few aspiring scouts here working at the NFL Draft Bible and All Access Football. They've gotten NFL interviews, but man, there's only so many of these jobs. So stay with it. Stay encouraged. Stay on your grind. Good things will happen in this business if you stay true to that. Also, you see me behind here, the Value Picks book. Our good friend Neil Stratton over at InsideTheLeague.com. He does the Friday wrap that just came out last night. I do the Business of Football wrap in that each and every Friday. You can go to InsideTheLeague.com and receive that for free. You can also get his new book, Value Picks, 10-year anniversary of the 2016 NFL Draft. We're going to include this with your allaccessfootball.com subscription. Okay, it's about a $20 value over on Amazon. We're going to throw that in as part of the All Access Football membership. So it's a 2-for-1 deal. Of course, you'll also get the 2026 NFL Draft Bible that comes out in April. Over 500 scouting reports. We're actually trending to have more than that, but at least 500 in-depth scouting reports. Of course, we'll be on location at all of the All-Star games, the NFL Scouting Combine, the Pro Day Circuit. I just posted the East-West Shrine Bowl tracker over on the website. We got the first 5 invitations. I saw Chris Johnson, the cornerback out of San Diego State, being the latest person invited to the East-West Shrine Bowl. Remember, these are just invites. It doesn't mean they have confirmed or accepted their invitation, but we'll track all that on the website. Senior Bowl tracker, Shrine Bowl tracker. We'll have the American Bowl tracker, all the All-Star game coverage, all the Combine Confidential, the whispers going on in Indianapolis. And of course, Monday, you get the Scout Notebook. Last week, we published 20 scouting reports from our scouting department last week. We do that each and every Monday. Players who stood out to us over the weekend. And a quick shout out here to Lauren Davidoff, Dom Ambrose, Jarrett Regal, Ryan Paglia, Will Donahue. All those guys are just grinding the axe, turning out scouting reports. And of course, Wednesday is the world famous All Access Football Report. This week, we're going to take a look at the Chris Greer firing. We've also got the FCS Combine just announced. We didn't have time to get into it today, but I'll have more about that on Wednesday's article. The world famous All Access Football Report comes out every Wednesday. And then Friday, we do the Draft Insider. Very similar to the show. We highlight the top games, marquee matchups, key prospects, scouting reports, player intel, background information, anything you could possibly want if you were an NFL general manager sitting inside the war room. We are bringing you the names you need to know first. Since 2002, it's what we do. Rick Saratella here for the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. One last favor before you go. I see some of you have smashed that like button. We appreciate all the love and support. If you can share and subscribe to the show, we're here each and every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern, with my co-host, Russ Landy. So thank you so much for buckling up and hunkering down for the hour and power. And we went 70 minutes today, a little bit overtime. You got about 45 minutes to kick off, so make those last second errands. Make sure you got the fridge stocked for today. It's going to be locked and loaded with college football action. So once again, thank you for watching. I am Rick Saratella. He was Russ Landy. We'll be back at it again next week.